listening to Living with ADHD and CPTSD, available on Apple and wherever you get your podcasts. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Living with ADHD and CPTSD. Today I have a CPTSD episode, and I'm going to talk about how anxiety and CPTSD are very similar and how they intertwine and can be confusing at times. Because as some of you might be aware, if you are on Twitter and you follow me and you pay attention to what I talk about on there, that you know that I have started a anxiety medication because I have for a long time felt that I am feeling anxious a lot, and it's interfering with my ability to lead a very normal and very happy, safe feeling kind of existence right now. Despite the CPTSD and the ADHD that I'm having, I didn't really understand until yesterday at some point. I don't remember exactly the time but I do remember that I had a really bad trigger yesterday, probably around 10 a.m. And I had just had a fight with my girlfriend, and it was pretty rough. And I just remember I got triggered and I was pretty much not functioning for about an hour. And then I started to kind of have this idea in my head, and I was thinking about it a lot and started to investigate further. And so while I was doing some work and preparing for my day, I also was sitting at my desk and trying to investigate, and it was pretty successful, that my anxiety that I'm feeling on a day-to-day basis is separate from the CPTSD. And the reason that I thought, and I had to prove it and, confirm my theory based on evidence and think about my past and like the past few weeks, and a discussion that I had with a relative of mine a few days earlier, that anxiety plays a role in this separately, not, together with CPTSD. Like, I'm not saying that it doesn't affect it and that one doesn't, work with the other necessarily. I mean more on the scale of when I'm having anxiety and I'm feeling the pain and the all that's occurring, is that this is the adult, and the adult is the one that's feeling the anxiety, and he's feeling the high nerves and the feelings that affect the mind. And when the adult isn't able to handle it and properly deal with the anxiety, then what happens is I get triggered, because the parts think and believe that the adult is not aware of it, or the adult is too overwhelmed and too consumed by the anxiety in the moment that they need to take over. And so they get triggered and they end up behaving or being in control of what's happening, whether it's a conversation, whether it's an action, a mental behavior, something that is being done in the moment, they take over. And so the thing that I was wondering and I was trying to determine is the fact that, is it really happening? Like, am I definitely feeling anxious and all the nerves and that, the excited and the worry and the how it affects my ability to think and function? Is it really having effect on the adult? And so I did a lot of thinking, and I remember that at the same time, a number of times during that point yesterday, that I was feeling the anxious feeling. And I think the reason that I was feeling it more so than in the past is because I've been on the medication now, the anxiety medication. This is the 4th day. And the effects of the medication are occurring, which in the first couple days there wasn't really anything happening. And so the clarity was more apparent than it was in the past. And I noticed, because how some of you may understand this, is that when you're triggered and you're blended with your system, if you haven't done a lot of work with your parts, then you're believing what the parts think, and you don't notice, like you can't tell, you can't see it in action, because you're so blended that you think you're the child, or you think you and your parts are the same at the moment. And so I noticed that I, as the adult, was sensing all this. Like, I could tell I was in control. I knew that I was feeling adult, like, thoughts and adult feelings. And there was just that slight difference. Like, it was enough of a difference that I didn't feel any childish thoughts. I didn't feel like, or act on any childish behaviors in that moment. I was able to successfully enough suppress the feeling just to the point where I could tell that I was feeling that anxiety and that hurt and that pain that comes with it. And there were no child parts online. And like, I'm kind of feeling it right now, because I'm a little nervous. I'm trying to make sure I say the right thing here and not make mistakes. And I realize that it's okay for a person to make mistakes. And I can kind of feel it in my voice. I can kind of feel it in my, everything, how it feels. And the other reasons that I noticed that is because, like, on Sunday, which was day 2, I was out with my dog at the dog park, and it was only like 16 degrees Celsius, so it wasn't very warm. Like, it had some warmth. There was the sunshine, and it wasn't extremely warm, and I wasn't exactly wearing a lot of clothing. I was shorts and a shirt and a hat, so I was protecting my head, and I had some water, and I noticed that I was feeling unusually warm. Like, like, I shouldn't feel that warm that soon. Like, if it was 22, 23 degrees, which is quite warm for us where we are in the spring, then that would be understandable, and there'd be an obvious explanation for it. But the fact that it was only that warm, and I was feeling quite like hot and almost like dehydrated in a way, and feeling it, I could tell there were some anxious feelings, and I was feeling tired, and I had to stop a few times and rest, because it felt like I had overexerted myself, but in the reality, I actually hadn't, because I'm in pretty good shape. I'm not out of shape. I feel capable. Like I'm more than capable of walking for an hour and a half, 2 hours at a pretty decent pace if I need to. And I've done that multiple times. This is nothing new for me. And so I could tell, like there was the adult sitting there as I was resting, and I could tell that there was these feelings, and it was different. And there was no trigger feeling. I didn't have any child parts that were coming online and getting scared or making ridiculous thoughts or anything like that. And I could feel it because I could tell I was in control. I could tell that my parts weren't coming online. And there were instances as well, like later on in that day when I was talking to my girlfriend, that I could see and I could sense that I was not triggered. I wasn't being the child, and that the anxiety was quite overwhelming. It was very strong, and I didn't know 100% until later on Monday, like the day yesterday, which was when I finally had it figured out, due to sitting there and doing a lot of like thinking and processing, that the anxious feelings were coming up at the beginning, and it was so strong, and to the point that I remember just getting overwhelmed and very anxious and very scared and feeling upset. And because I wasn't able to I couldn't stop, right? Like it was just so strong. And especially when the tempo, or not the tempo, the tone of the conversation in the room was getting higher and higher, I was just feeling more and more overwhelmed. And then what ended up happening is all of a sudden the parts would come online, and the kefir part would come on, and I would be blended with him. And that's when I got triggered. And it, like the changeover kind of occurred abruptly. Like it wasn't like a general or a gradual trigger in blending into the system. It was a very sudden and powerful like feeling. And it didn't occur until after that, when I was finally coming out of it, and I felt more like myself and I felt normal, that there was this anxious feeling, like this very nervous, very scared feeling that the adult was noticing. And it's amazing how such a slight change, because the difference that I noticed is the fact that I was thinking adult-like situations and adult-like responses, and in my mind there wasn't any of this like evil thing or evil ideas that like parts were coming up with. They weren't accusing anybody of any dastardly plans, or that anybody was a bad person, or any sort of way like that. And I just remember that I was having such a difficult time doing anything verbally, like saying something, like speaking out and going, something's not right. I'm feeling this anxious feeling. And it was more physical than mental. Like that's the interesting thing, is that because of the medication that I'm on, the physical sensation that I have when I'm feeling anxious and I'm feeling that drive, like that worried, scared feeling that I have, it was pretty intense. And I was still able to maintain myself. Like it didn't go to the, it wasn't like feeling childish and thinking childish related thoughts. Like I know in previous times, and this was like long before I was on the anxiety medication, there were times that I'd be triggered and I'd be blended with my system. And when I was on my own, like I was by myself and I'm thinking, like I sometimes I'd be driving in my car doing work, and other times I'd be in my bedroom and trying to, work through the trigger and get unblended. There'd be thoughts in my mind that were pretty obvious that they weren't adult related thoughts. Like it was child part thoughts, because the thoughts were like ridiculous things, like wanting to leave, thinking that this is dumb. Why am I doing this? Like bad thoughts that are unfair, and not believing that what I'm doing is wrong. Like it's very rebellious and very, childlike thoughts and actions that are in my mind. And I remember numerous times that the adult part, or like the adult who was in there as well, would always pop up seconds after that thought would come up and would go, that's stupid. Don't do that. That's ridiculous. That's clearly not the right thing to do. That's a very childish action. Don't be, like, we're not going to do that. No, I understand that you're concerned, like you're talking them through and you're talking them down, and you're trying to show them that it's okay. I get that you're angry. I get that you're trying to protect me, but that's not an appropriate course of action, because all that's going to do is make things worse. It's going to hurt more. It's going to hurt that person more than you already have. And that the correct course of action is just to calm down, like go for a walk, maybe to zone out for a bit, try to allow your mind to cool off. And that was the process, and that had happened multiple times. Like I've probably had it happen a few hundred times. It's just every time that it would occur, then it would be more clear to me. Like it'd be more obvious that this is what's going on, that the adult part is sitting there kind of like a teacher, or like a mediator, right? Like when two sides are debating and they're feeling slighted, or they think things aren't going right for them. The adult was like a mediator going, okay, I hear you. Right. Yeah. And then it would go, no, that's not going to work. That's not right. That I understand, but that's not a good course of action, because you got to realize that what's going to happen if you end up saying something or doing something so ridiculous, or that is not a fair course of action. So that right there was a very good indicator that I was clearly blended with my child parts, and that I wasn't the adult. I wasn't grounded. It was my attempt to start going through the work. And so that's how I realized yesterday, when I was thinking about all this, that I knew that the adult was the one that was feeling all the anxiety and all that extra stress and the fear and that pain that was occurring, because there weren't ever any of those thoughts. Like there were no evil thoughts or any dastardly thinking, childish related kind of ideas that would come up, or thoughts that were clearly hurtful, or mean, or like incomplete related thoughts that would always come up, saying, oh, I should do this. This is so stupid. Why, none of that was ever occurring. The only thoughts that were ever occurring was, this feels bad. I don't like this feeling. This is scary. This is rough. This is too much. And there was very little thinking. There was hardly any kind of complete thought, because all I could say was like two, 3 word in my brain sentences at a time. Like I said, it was this is too much. This is scary. I hate this feeling. I wish it would go away. Like, why do I feel nervous? I don't understand. There's no reason for it. I'm not in a situation that's scary. I'm in a good place. I'm by myself. I'm walking the dog. I'm in nature, which is great. I love it. This is where I want to be right now. And yet I would feel it. And it was so strong and so powerful that it would literally be all that I could really think about. And eventually, when that overwhelming sensation from the anxiety would dissipate and I could feel normal again, I would feel good. Like I felt like myself. And there at no point in that time were there any parts that were online. Like they weren't thinking, they weren't saying anything to me, they weren't trying to suggest any kind of course of action or any sort of negative implications or thoughts or feelings. That wasn't occurring at any point. And it was at that point that I realized that this is the adult feeling this. There weren't any parts online. I wasn't triggered. I wasn't blended. If I do acknowledge that if it had been too much, like to the point where I can't handle it. Like if, you're in a situation and you can't get away, like if, let's say you're in a store or there's someone verbally attacking you, and you really can't get away from them, and you're feeling that anxious feeling, you're getting super anxious, you're getting overwhelmed, and the adult is sitting there. If you're unable to get away from it and you can't overcome that, then there's a really good chance, and I acknowledge that likelihood that I am going to get triggered, and that they will come online, because they're going to see the adult sitting there and they're going to go, okay guys, this is too much. He's not going to get out of this. He needs protection. He needs to feel safe, and they don't think that I'm feeling safe in that moment. So they come online and they take over. But then that's the negative aspect of that, is because they are child parts, they're not going to be able to be capable of saying adult related like responses. They can't, like, because they're children, right? So they only do what they know and what they grew up with and how they were brought into this life. So yeah, the part would come on and start saying things and start doing things, and that's when the trigger was on, and I'd be blended. And it was so clear, like it was so obvious to me, and it started to make sense. And I just remember thinking to myself, holy, like, I get it now. I understand, because the fact that there were no childish related like comments, there wasn't anything in my mind that was feeling that way. And I didn't have any, like, there wasn't any, like, none of the, there were none of any of these feelings. There was no resentment, there was no anger, there was no like defensive feeling, there was no like, like mean childish type of thoughts or ideas that were popping into my head. None of that was coming. There was never any of those. And that's how I knew, and that's how I could identify. Like, it, when you're feeling, to me anyways, I don't know if it's the same for everybody else, and there's a possibility it may not be. I don't know. I haven't really talked to too many people yet who are doing what I'm doing. But in the moment when the anxious feeling and the anxiety and all that overwhelming sensation that I had when it was coming online, all I could think about was how intense it was, how bad and how strong I felt. And if there had been someone else there, like if, let's say I'd gone with a partner, a walking partner or friend, and we were out on a walk in the park, and we were talking, and if the feeling had come on, there was a good likelihood that I probably would have missed a lot of the conversation. Like I would have probably been to the point where, because my thoughts were so, I was so consumed with the feelings and the thoughts of this, I'm feeling this anxiousness, I'm feeling this overwhelmed feeling. It's scary, it's hurtful, it's not fun. I wish it would stop. It would have been pretty obvious to those who would have been around. But because I'm still not used to it, like it's still pretty new to me, I would not have necessarily noticed it right away. It might have taken me a few seconds, because it's not it's just like anything else. When you start to learn something new, sometimes it can be right away where you get it, and it's like, oh, this makes sense. I see it, and you act on it, and everything's good, and you have a fast response to it. And then there are some times where you are a bit of a slow learner, and you don't know right away, and it takes 2 or 3, maybe 4 times before it suddenly you remember that feeling from the past. Like the last couple times, it kind of clicks in your mind, and you go, oh yeah, I noticed, I've had this before, I get it, this is what I felt last time. And it then clicks in your head, and you're going, okay, I'm feeling anxious, I've got some anxiety right now. And you learn, and you try to figure out in that moment how to get past it, or how to deal with it. And whether it's sitting down and doing some breathing, maybe like trying to be present in the moment, like where you are, trying to have be in the moment with, like if you're in, like where I was, try to focus on something that will make you feel good, something that will make you feel happy, that will help take away that anxious feeling. So I sat down, and I had to keep an eye on my dog, of course. Obviously I can't just completely go into where I was wanting to go, because I had to watch him. But he's a well-behaved dog. He's not going to get into trouble, so it's not like I had too much to worry about. Anyway, so I sat down, and I did things like focus on the nice warmth. I had to drink some water, felt the water in my system, focused on that feeling, tried to like listen to the water moving, like, because we're next to a river, so try to watch the river, try to listen to it, try to like take in the sounds. When a dog would come by, like another dog, I'd kind of like take it in and admire the colors and how it was such a pretty dog, and such, like you try to focus on the things that are good and that are fun and that are happy feelings, like warm safe feelings. And when I did that, like it wasn't a like 10 seconds kind of thing where you go poof and it's gone, and everything's back to feeling good and safe and calm. But it took a few minutes or so, and when it finally, I could feel the anxiety levels dropping. I felt safer, and I felt much better in my state where I was, and then I got back up and kept going. And it was teaching me slowly how to recognize the state that I'm in, and I was also learning how to take care of it and how to try to keep it calm and try to lower that anxious feeling that I was having. And then one of the weirdest but most pleasant things happened yesterday, and it was while I was working, and it was at about just after 2:00, and I remember, and it was okay, here's the irony of this, and you're going to probably either laugh or you're going to think this is the strangest coincidence or the most opposite of situations. In my work, my profession that I do, of course, which is IT work with computers, one of my locations that I have to support is a provincial penitentiary or prison or jail. Some of you also may know like remand center, which is like a holding place, or people who are serving 2 or less years or awaiting trial. So I support a jail, and of course, as I'm sure you are aware, there's a lot of nasty, bad feelings, bad people that have committed crimes that are in there, and so the feeling, the aura, like it's not exactly a place that people want to be. Even like most workers, like employees that work there, the officers, it's not like they want to be there. Sure, they're working, they're earning a living, they're getting paid, but it's not like they want to be there. This isn't a place that they think is fun. It's a job, and because there is a possibility that they could get attacked. There are people who get arrested and go to this place that are really bad people. And even though the really, really bad people are in the max and they don't ever get out, except for like an hour, I believe it's an hour a day. So it's just like in the States and some other countries, they only have so much time to get out of their cell. Anyways, there have been occasions where officers get attacked and they get harmed. I think one even was killed a long time ago. Anyway, not to get off track here too much. So the feeling that you get, and I always get this feeling, I always had an anxious kind of feeling when I would go in there. And it was like that feeling of, I don't totally feel safe. This is not a place that I want to be. I would rather be anywhere than in the jail, but I have to do my job, so I just have to be on alert. And the interesting thing is, back then, it never really fully occurred to me that this was my anxious feeling, like the adult-related anxiety that I feel now. I didn't even think back then that's what it was. I always thought that I was just getting triggered. And yet it didn't fully register, because I was thinking so much about what I'm doing and being on high alert, because who knows kind of thoughts and feelings, that I never really investigated too thoroughly. Because when you're doing your work, I was so hyper focused on what I'm doing that I didn't really pull myself away at any point to think about it, to really go too deep into that. And so it's kind of ironic. Right now I'm actually realizing as we speak that that's what was going on, is that I was having anxious feelings and anxiety when I would be in there, because it was scary. It was extremely overwhelming. And walking by people, like I have a number of times walked down hallways towards the cells, like the pods that they're in, and there would be, I don't know, 12 prisoners or inmates that would be walking on a single file against the wall, and there'd of course be an officer, right, leading them. And I always had this weird feeling, and it would be in the back of my mind, that there's going to be one day I'm going to be walking, not really paying attention as much as I should, and despite the officer, there to watch over them, that one of these guys who is really, well, maybe he's mentally unstable or something, that he would think that it would be the right opportunity to do something or get stupid and attack, right? And he would get the moment. He would have enough time before the officer would step in that he could do something really quick. So I would have that feeling, that anxiousness, that anxiety, that I'm thinking, I've got to be on alert, I've got to be aware. And it would cause really deep, anxious, overwhelming feelings inside me. And it was scary because, yeah, you don't know. You just never know. And especially going into the rooms where there's the general area that the inmates can be in while they're not in their cells, and they're walking around doing their thing, spending time there, obviously. And there's a couple officers there, but you still just have that feeling deep inside that you worry that something's going to happen. And every time I leave that jail, I get a huge sense of relief, like a calming feeling, because it's like, okay, I'm out. I'm no longer there. I can relax. I can feel safe again. And I know some of you are probably thinking, well, geez, it's a jail. Of course you're going to feel nervous. You're going to feel that your safety might not be at 100%. There might be that possibility. Yeah, I get that. So, but keep in mind, the feelings that I had were way more. Like it was a lot higher, and there were days when I was in there that it was so consuming that I moved as fast as I could. I went as fast as I could. I would intentionally be as far as away from people, or always keeping an eye. Like I would be like a hawk, always, my eyes always on my prey, on what I'm looking at, to make sure, just in case, right? So it was intense, and I felt the difference immediately when I got out of the doors. Like it was that strong and that obvious. But it's funny how it's apparent now that it was anxiety. So yeah, it's that difference. It's that feeling, the thoughts, the feelings, there's that slight difference, and it's enough that I'm now noticing. And I'm recognizing when it is and when it's not a trigger, when I'm not blended. So the next step that I have to take, and I do realize that this isn't going to be an easy thing. It's not like you take a 24-hour course and suddenly you've got it and you know how to take care of it. The next step in this is to learn to recognize in the moment, like right there, to be able to have enough ability to step up and go, okay, I'm feeling super anxious. I'm really nervous. Something is wrong. I need to take a step back. I need to sit down. I need to breathe. I need to refocus, do whatever I need to do in order to overcome and calm myself. And at the same time, I can also learn to better recognize at the same time the trigger, or that, and to see that I'm triggered and see when it happens, because I've spent so much time in the past year or two now that I'm, I have such a much better understanding of complex trauma. I've spent so much time learning about it and seeing this, seeing the differences, noticing that I'm blended, which isn't 100%. It's not like I've mastered it by any means. I need to now really get good at recognizing the moment it happens and then acting on it. That is the step that I really need to focus on. And I think that I don't know, I might be wrong, but I'm certain in my mind that getting a grasp on the anxiety is going to make a big difference in knowing when I get triggered and when I become blended, because it is extremely important. It is going to determine the future that I have, not only in my life, but most importantly in my relationship, because I have had a great deal of struggle in regards to identifying and knowing that I'm triggered, that it's happened, and seeing the change and realizing that and recognizing that, holy shit, I've become triggered. I'm not myself. And then having the ability to say out loud or signal or something to my partner to say, okay, I'm triggered. I need to step away. I need to take some time. I need to go away so that I can, because I'm triggered. I'm not in the right state of mind. If I can master and understand this anxiety and get it under control, which I think I will, now that I am on medication and that I'm working towards it, I really feel confident enough to say that I think I can get a grasp on this. Because now that I can see, like, it's going to take some work, and it's obviously going to get better and better over the next little while. If I can understand, I can see that there's anxiety. If I can take care of that right then and there, like, it's going to take some time. It's not like tomorrow the medication's going to kick in and it's going to do its job perfectly. And then I'm going to feel relaxed and calm, and I'm not going to feel in danger, and I'm going to feel safe. It's going to take some time. And I think once I've got a good grasp at it and I've really got control, then I'll be able to identify the trigger point at a much better rate and much higher chance. Oh yeah, I just realized I forgot to say a little bit more in regard to in the prison. I got so into that. Okay, sorry, I just realized. I was sitting in the office doing some work on a computer, and I was kind of just reading some stuff, trying to do some notes, updating, and I noticed a very different feeling. One that it's been such a long time that since I have felt it, that I didn't know for the first little bit what it was. It was a very peaceful, safe, euphoric feeling, and it was good. It was slightly overwhelming. It wasn't too much where I like freaked out or was going, holy crap, what the hell's going on? It was more like a really happy, peaceful calmness. Like it was clarity, and it was strong, and it was a happy feeling, and it was such a good, like, incredibly peaceful feeling that I just remember going, wow. And I sat there and I took it in, because I was like, I didn't know how long it was going to last. And it just felt so incredibly good, like such an amazing feeling. It was a feeling of safety. It was a feeling of assurance and super calm. And it's ironic because here I am in the middle of a jail where you really shouldn't, to be honest, feel safe. Like, if you know what I mean. And it was so incredible. And the first thing I did, well, I had to obviously finish up and complete the work that I was doing and go back out to the car to continue going to whatever I was, my next place. When I got in the car, the first thing I did was I messaged my girlfriend and I said, holy, like, it was incredible. It was so much, it was so strong. And I said, okay, I had a moment here where I felt different, almost like euphoric, very new. And she was so happy for me. Like, it was incredible. And and then I said, I'm not sure how to word it. It's the feeling besides what I said. All I know is there was a moment where I had no anxiety at all. There was a calm. And then, of course, instead of taking it in, like I remember, instead of sitting there and feeling it, and then like how when someone meditates, instead of feeling it, I started thinking. And for me, that's the last thing. That's the worst thing that someone should do, because all of a sudden now, instead of the feeling being there and being in the moment and with that feeling, I thought about it. And so that immediately starts turning your brain on. And so you start thinking, you start obsessing and going through it, going about it. And it went away. Like, it was stupid of me. And unfortunately, that's just how I am. That's a habit that I have, is when something good happens, I think about it instead of just taking it in and enjoying it for as long as I can. But it was such a great feeling. And I'm looking forward to having more of that. And I know it's up to me. I know it all depends on how I am and then the work that I do. It's not going to be something that just occurs at any point. Like it did then, but in order to continue to make it better and stronger and occur more and more, it's up to me to make that happen. And I ended up having the two of us went out on at the picnic to have dinner. So we went to the store and I got, here's the irony, is we agreed, we were like, we were going to go. So yeah, sure. Let's do that. That sounds like a great idea. Right. And so we went out, and as I was walking to the vehicle, all of a sudden I got anxious. I was feeling extremely overwhelmed, and it wasn't a child part by any means, because I could tell, like I could feel the adult was there. I could totally feel it. And I just remember that she had to drive because I was not in the right state of mind to do it. And we got to the store and it kind of subsided, and then it came back, and we ended up discussing about it and getting into a conversation. And then we were at the park and it started to feel better. Like I did some breathing exercises. She helped me. She told me to breathe. So I did some breathing, and it did start to calm me down. I did start to feel better. And then when we got to the park and we sat up, we just discussed it, and we had a very open and real conversation about it. And I talked more about how my relative helped me understand to the degree of where my anxiety was coming from, and about family history, and learning that this whole thing is generational. Like, it wasn't just, I'm not just the first person to get it, to have this sort of problem with abuse and CPTSD related problems. I'm not the first person in my family to deal with that. So it gave me a sense of relief and peace, and the fact that I'm so much better aware of everything. Like I know that in order for me to get a handle on my CPTSD, that I do need to be really in control and understanding of my anxiety, because I can't do one without the other. And that is the one thing that I've learned is, in order for my child parts to believe in me and trust me, and for me to heal as much as I need to be aware of and in control and understanding my anxiety and know how to take care of it and know how to handle it. Because if I can't handle the anxiety as the adult, how the heck am I supposed to be able to handle a trigger, right? Like, it's not possible, because if the parts see that you can't handle your own anxiety and pain and discomfort, how can they trust the adult to take care of them, the child parts? It doesn't work. You have to have one under control in order to be able to take care of the second thing, which is the child parts. Now that I'm aware of this, great, like, it's so much better and so much more, and I'm so happy about that. I'm so glad that the level of awareness that I have is there. Now it's just allowing the medication to help me, learning all the little things, like understanding it, accepting it, being aware, and noticing the anxious feelings, and being able to, if I am with someone, to tell them about it, like to tell her that, okay, I'm feeling anxious. I'm not right in my mind at the moment. If I can get there, then I've made a major step, and I've made a lot of progress. And when I'm by myself, to realize it, which I'm doing a pretty good job of, honestly, but to realize that it's occurring right then and there, and to do whatever is necessary to try and overcome it, to try and calm yourself and overcome the anxious feelings. Whether it's pulling over in the car, stopping at a park and taking a break and doing some grounding tools, anything that is helpful is a good step in the right direction, and that's what I'm working towards. And then I know I can get even better when it comes to dealing with my child parts and knowing what I have to do and being better at it, being more capable of doing the processing with my system, with my parts, and having them trust me more and more. And then I can get closer all the time to healing from my CPTSD and be the adult more often. And at the same time, save my relationship, a better chance at making more friends, at having a more complete, happier, fuller life than what I'm having now. I feel so beneficial and so grateful that I do have people in my life that can help me and are there for me and supportive, like my aunt, the one that I visited on the weekend. I have another aunt that I've talked to a number of times now regarding my issues, and she's been extremely helpful. I have a couple of really great friends who have been through their own experiences with trauma and anxiety and have been very helpful and very grateful to help me and willing to be there to listen, and then we exchange understandings and ideas and each other's stories, and it all is helpful. And then the one person who has been the most help and has been super supportive and amazing for me is my girlfriend. Without her, I don't think I'd be anywhere near where I am today. I think I'd be, I don't know. I don't know where I'd be. I just know it wouldn't be good, and I wouldn't be close to being a good, caring partner the way I should be all the time. Not just 30%, 100% of the time. Without her, I wouldn't be here the way I am today. And I'm forever grateful. And she's truly an amazing woman and an amazing person. There's so many people out there that already know that, so this isn't news to anybody. Well, to people who don't know her, obviously, that would be news. But to the people who know who she is, that's definitely not a new thing to learn. So I thank her more than anyone. She's awesome. All right, that's it for today's episode. I hope this was insightful and informative for you, and I hope you got a lot out of this. Please let people know about this podcast. If you think this is extremely beneficial for you, or any of my other podcast episodes, please let me know. You could either donate to me. I am at ko-fi.com, ko-fi.com/living with ADHD and CPTSD. You can also contact me either at Twitter. The handle is at ADHD and CPTSD. You can email me. My new email address is livingwithadhd and cptsd@gmail.com. And then there's my website, of course, which is www.livingwithadhdandcptsd.ca. I am so grateful for everything, and I really look forward to continuing my healing process and getting better. All right, everyone. Talk to you next week. Bye for now.